Hey everyone, today we're going to crack open a text that's about 1600 years old, the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra. But trust me, this isn't some dry history lesson. Inside this ancient work is a surprisingly modern and practical toolkit for taking apart and understanding reality itself. You're going to want to see this.
So let's start with a huge question, one we all grapple with, right? How do we know what's actually real versus what's just a story we've been told or a story we're telling ourselves? We're swimming in information and ideas all day long. Well, believe it or not, this ancient text gives us a step-by-step method for tackling that very problem.
Okay, so before we can even begin to analyze the world out there, the text says we have to get our own house in order. We have to prepare the one tool we have for seeing anything, our mind. This whole first stage is called contemplation-born wisdom, and it all kicks off with one fundamental idea. And that idea is intrinsic purity, or 自性清净. The argument here is that our minds, at their core, are naturally clear and unclouded. Think of it like a perfectly still lake. All the mud and sediment, our biases, our distractions, have to settle before we can see clearly to the bottom. This calm, clear state is the absolute necessary foundation before you can begin to 思则所知, to really discern what is knowable. You just can't see reality clearly through a clouded lens. So how do we get that mental clarity? Well, the text doesn't just leave it at clear your mind. It gives us this really methodical 9-step training process. It's not vague at all. You can see it starts with something simple, find a quiet place, but then it gets into much deeper stuff, like focusing only on what's actually conceivable and contemplating the meaning behind the words, not just getting stuck on the surface. Each step is designed to methodically clear away the mental clutter, getting us ready for the real work. All right, once the mind is prepared, once that lake is still, we're ready. It's time to open up the cognitive toolkit. And this is where things get super practical, giving us a framework we can use to analyze literally everything we think we know. The very first tool in the kit is a simple but really powerful sorting hat. You take everything you encounter and you put it into one of two buckets. On one side, you have existent phenomena, things that have some kind of basis, something we can actually investigate and talk about. On the other side, non-existent phenomena. The classic example from the text is the child of a barren woman. It's a phrase, sure, but it points to nothing that actually exists. The point is profound. Stop wasting your time and mental energy on things that have no real basis. First, figure out if there's even a there. So, okay, we've filtered out the non-existent stuff. For everything that's left, everything that does have a basis, the toolkit gives us 5 different lenses, 5 different ways to look at it more closely. And here they are, the 5 modes. You've got specific characteristics, like the unique crispness of this specific apple. Then you have general characteristics, like the fact that all apples are impermanent. We've got causes and their results, which is pretty straightforward. But look at number 3, provisional existence. This is where the analysis gets totally mind-bending and honestly incredibly relevant to how we live today. So let's zoom in on that third category, the one called 假象有, or provisional existence. This idea is brilliant because it shows how our language doesn't just describe reality. In a very real sense, it creates it. This is the category where discourse arises. What on earth does that mean? Well, it means that a whole lot of the things we see as solid individual objects are, in reality, just collections of other parts. We've just mentally bundled them together and slapped a convenient name on them. The thing itself exists mostly as a concept, as a label. And here is a fantastic example straight from the text to make this concrete. Think about the door of the house. Is a door a fundamental object that exists on its own? Not really. It's a collection of wood, a knob, some hinges, and we only call it a door because of its relationship to the other collection of parts we've decided to call a house. It's provisional. The text just keeps hitting us with more examples to make sure we get it. A jar doesn't literally have a mouth. An army doesn't have a chariot in the same fundamental way a person has a liver. It's a component. Even a concept like 10 of 100 is just a way we group things. These things don't have an independent existence. Their reality is provisional, depending entirely on parts, context, and the names we use. And now for the grand finale. This is where we take this incredibly powerful toolkit and we turn it on the most solid, most fundamental concept we have, our own sense of self. If a door is just a concept, what about me? The text walks us through this deconstruction with a series of verses. This first line hits like a ton of bricks. It directly challenges our default setting, the feeling that there's a little CEO in our head, a ruler who's in charge, doing all the actions and experiencing all the results.
So when you actually use the toolkit, when you really scrutinize all the components that make up what we call a person, the body, the feelings, the thoughts, the memories, can you actually pinpoint a separate, independent being that owns all of it? The text's conclusion is radical. No, you can't find it. All you find are the processes themselves, constantly changing.
And this insight doesn't just apply to us, our inner world of thoughts and our outer world of objects. When you analyze them this way, they're all found to be empty. Now, empty doesn't mean they don't exist. It means they're empty of a solid, permanent, independent core. They're all just interdependent processes. And this is the final conclusion. That solid, continuous I that we feel so strongly simply doesn't exist as a fundamental thing. It's a provisional concept, a false imagining that our minds create by mistaking a flowing river of processes for a solid, unchanging rock. Okay, wow, that can sound really abstract, maybe even a little scary. So why are we talking about this? Why should a philosophical deep dive from over 1,000 years ago matter to any of us today? What's the point? The goal here is absolutely not to deny reality or to say that our lives don't matter. It's the opposite. The whole point is to see things more accurately. When you realize how many of our most rigid ideas about the world, and especially about ourselves, are actually provisional, you can hold on to them a little less tightly. It's a practical path to becoming more mentally flexible, more clear-headed, and ultimately free from the stress that comes from defending ideas that were never solid to begin with. And so I want to leave you with this question to carry with you. As you go about your day, try using this little toolkit. Look at the things you take for granted, your job title, a brand name, your political party, maybe even a personality trait you think defines you. And just ask yourself, is this thing a fundamental reality? Or is it more like the door of the house, a powerful and useful concept, for sure, but one that exists more by the name we've given it than by its own separate, solid nature? I think you'll find the answer might just change how you see, well, everything.